Benefits Planning 101. This webinar is funded through technical assistance through the Office of Disability Employment Policy and EconSys, which is available through the Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Program. My name is Dwayne Mate, and I'm Director of Employment for Developmental Disabilities and representing our state consortium. A few housekeeping items. Participants are muted upon entry. However, it is suggested that you also mute your line as well. As we have many people participating in the webinar, unfortunately, we're unable to unmute everyone's lines as it will create a lot of interference with the speaker. If you are using a headset with your computer and do not have sound, you may need to check that you're connected to the correct audio source, as your default may be set to something different than your headset. You have the ability to control your own viewing of documents that appeared in the top right-hand corner of your screen. At each of the webinars, we will be completing an archived recording of the webinar and uploading them to the Division of Developmental Disabilities website. At that time, we will be sharing that with all the participants in the event that you're wanting to review the content again, or if for some reason you're unable to participate in one of the webinars, it will be there for future use. So at this point in time, what I would like to do is introduce our speaker for this webinar series. Ashley Lance, who's with Griffin Hammis and Associates and a senior consultant and project coordinator, will be the individual who's providing training across the 5 webinar series. Added training and technical assistance around customized employment, support employment, self-employment, benefits planning, and agency capacity building. Ashley has worked in various states, including Alabama, Iowa, Maryland, Missouri, New Mexico, and Utah. She is on the board of directors for the Association of Community Rehabilitation Educators and certified benefits planner through the Virginia Commonwealth University and completed the Certified Employment Support Professional Certification in 2013. Ashley did her master's degree in rehabilitation counseling at Drake University and is a certified rehabilitation counselor. Before I turn it over to Ashley, if you do have questions throughout the webinar, please type those in the Q&A box, and we will answer them as time allows. And with that, I will turn it over to Ashley.
Awesome. Thank you, Dwayne. It is a pleasure to be with you on this lovely Monday, and I'm joining you from Iowa, so I'm not too far away. Again, my name is Ashley Lance, and we get to hang out for the next 5 Mondays talking about the wonderful topic of benefits planning. A couple of things, just to tell you, I've been dabbling in the benefits world for about 10 years, so there are many folks out there who have been dabbling in this much, much longer than I. It's also important that you know I receive training and technical assistance around this topic as well. So I would say, you know, there are maybe 20 experts in the country around this stuff, and I'm lucky to have received some information and experience. But I want to welcome you all to the big black hole of never-ending information on Social Security Administration and benefits around SSI and Title II. So we're going to get to these topics, but I do want to let you know throughout this series of our 5 Mondays together and the on-site, you will just have skimmed the very top of the iceberg when it comes to this information. So please know that you are not intended to leave as an expert, but to just hold on to some of this information that you receive throughout the webinar series and through the on-site training. So just as a reminder, there will be on July 9th, July 16th, July 23rd, July 30th, and August 6th. If you have state-specific questions, I'm a Missouri Medicaid expert. However, we have those experts on the phone, and Charles Bentley is our tagged expert, so I'm thrilled to see that he's joining us today. So if you do have questions, hopefully Charles will be able to jump in and help answer those. Otherwise, during your on-site he will be available to help answer those questions. So just want to point out those pieces. The other note I wanted to make is that many of you have hopefully seen the link for Social Security Administration's Red Book. And that is going to be your main kind of resource or tool as we cover the content. So if you have time, please spend some time reading identified pages in the Red Book that will kind of prime you for the topic that we'll be talking about each webinar. So today is simply an overview. A few points I want you to walk away with, and we will get to those here shortly. I think that's covered. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to dive into, in our short little hour together, touch on what is your role. So you are attending this webinar series. There's a great amount of you here, which is fantastic. But what in the world is your role now that you've had this information or you're receiving this information? And last webinar, we'll be diving into this topic much more, but we'll dabble in it today. Also, you understand the basic concepts and eligibility criteria for Social Security Title II benefits and for Supplemental Security Income benefits. So those are the only things I want you to walk away with. Feel out where all 130 of you are today. So I have a quick poll. The learning you've received around benefits planning. A, I have no training at all, and I don't even know what we're talking about, or I've got an idea. B, some training. I know SSI and SSDI are, but that's about it. C, a little bit more training. And I know the difference between SSI and SSDI, and I feel comfortable having a conversation about it. I'm a pro. I've had extensive training, and I've supported beneficiaries with work incentives. So identify where you fit into those categories as best as you can in the next few minutes. And once the results show up. All right, so thank you all for participating. There's 8% of you that are brand new. Welcome. It's totally okay, and I'm so glad you're here. A lot of you, so I would say the majority, 46% of you say, I've had training, I know what they are, or I know that they exist. Excellent, you are in the right place. 30% of you said, I've had a little bit more training and I know the difference between SSI and SSDI and feel comfortable having a conversation. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I like to believe that all benefit from additional training or reminders around the topic. And there are a few of you who are at that pro level. So I'm thrilled to see you joining as well. And if things you like to also contribute to the training, please do. And there's a few of you who didn't feel comfortable answering. So not a problem. Thank you so much for sharing kind of where you're at. So you need to know this information. The reality is, all working with individuals who experience a disability. Many of the folks that we have the opportunity to support in our work of employment, oftentimes individuals are receiving one or both of public benefits, but specifically for our conversation today, we're talking about adult-based benefits, not the child benefit and not the retirement benefit, to be clear, but but people with disabilities really consider how work is going to affect their benefits. And so many of you are supporting folks in exploring what type of work they're going to go after, career planning. Hopefully some of you also took the customized employment training. But the idea is that anybody who's receiving these benefit of SSI or Title II benefits, oftentimes they have been fed various myths that say, you know, you can only work so much or you're going to lose your benefit. Or the application process is so intense and so meticulous that folks are oftentimes fearful of even pursuing work because they might lose that benefit, and oftentimes that benefit is a lifeline for their Medicaid insurance. So buying is then impact how people think about work. And so if we're going to support people in pursuing employment and pursuing careers and live a life outside of poverty, the reality is we've got to know this information, or at least the basics, and know who we can refer to for more information, who are those expert folks. So issues around this topic is, one, the work rules and programs are horribly confusing, and there's misinformation everywhere. So just again, they're crazy confusing. So that they say, welcome to the big black hole of information of benefits, right? So that oftentimes we are fed misinformation and we continue feeding that to folks. So the goal is hopefully that throughout our series and our training that you feel a bit more comfortable in saying, you know what, I can identify one of those myths and I can put it at and provide this individual or family with accurate information around their benefits and connect them to someone who also is going to be more knowledgeable. So the other piece is that people are choosing not to work or limiting how much they work out of fear of losing access to that benefit. So again, a lot of times I hear folks say, well, I would love to work more, or I can only work part-time. If I was in a room with all of you, I would ask you to raise your hand and say how many people have heard folks say, I can only work part-time or I'm going to lose my benefit. 80% your hand, because that is one of the widest spread myths out there around benefits. Not true in many, many cases. Particularly, it is associated, it's a myth associated with Title II benefits. It has nothing to do with SSI. And we'll more confident in that as we go through the next couple of webinars and where we dive into Title II specifically and SSI specifically. So bottom line is folks looking at how is work going to impact my benefits, and you as an employment professional have the opportunity to give folks accurate benefits information to help them really make an accurate decision around how work will impact their benefits. And most of the time, folks are always going to get ahead when they're working rather than just relying on that benefit check. So, I used to work at, I operated an employment program, and we decided to have a person in our agency become our benefits planner. Many of us were certified benefits planners, but just by adding that role and increasing our conversations with individuals, we saw a huge increase in the amount of hours that folks were working per month because they had that accurate information. So I do want you to know that this information makes a huge impact as far as folks can say how much they want to work. So, and working to their full potential. How does this really fit into your job? And I know we have many of you who are various types of roles, from state government to private provider agencies, but I am confident that this information, if you're part of this webinar series, there is definitely a way for you to weave this into existing conversations with individuals you're supporting. So when you see someone who receives a benefit month, once every 6 months, or if you see them every day for 3 hours, thinking about work and how their benefits impact work. And so just by weaving this into your existing conversations, when someone says, well, gee, I'd love to work, but I'll lose my benefits if I do that. A lot of times we just go, I don't think so, but I don't know. So we skim over that conversation. Instead, my hope is that you feel confident by the end of this series to step in and say, let's look into that further. Can you tell me more about what you mean when you're going to lose your benefits? I've heard that folks oftentimes get ahead by working and receiving benefits. So let's look into this further. So weave it into your existing conversations. If someone's contemplating work, do you have any fear around benefits and work? Or if you're going to be pursuing work, let me tell you, or let me connect you with some folks who can tell you a little bit more about how work is going to impact your benefits, and financially you can also get ahead. Who doesn't want more money in their pocket? So that's also the bottom line for all of us. We want to help folks get more money in their pockets and live life outside of poverty. You can also dedicate time to address the need with some or all of the job seekers that you serve. So what do I mean by that? So from my prior experience as a service provider, you start paying attention more when you start working with individuals of what benefit are they receiving. Confirm that this individual receives SSI. Can we confirm that this individual receives a Title II benefit? Or maybe they receive both, which would make them a concurrent beneficiary. So we start really focusing on who's receiving benefits, and if they're working at a certain level, we want to make sure they're reporting benefits. 2, could this person, benefit from work incentives? So I know I'm throwing around some terms they're going to get to. The idea is, can you dedicate some time to address the need with a few of the speakers that you're working with, or even look at expanding that as you feel more comfortable? So the biggest piece is to make referrals for more information. And so again, in a later webinar, we're going to talk more about who to refer to for more information when needed. You do have some great local experts at your fingertips through your anybody who's receiving IPS services can have access to benefits planning services, and then each state has a work incentive planning and assistance project that you can refer to individuals as well. So there is more information and support out there, and just knowing who to refer to oftentimes makes a big difference. What is your role? 1, to bring this topic, to have less fear around addressing the idea of what is Title II, what is SSI, and to just have a conversation. And you can put it, say, you know what, I'm not an expert, but here's what I've heard, and I believe you can get ahead, and I think you can work more than part-time, but look into this information further. Also, to provide basic information, because a lot of times individuals are basing their decision off of misinformation or those myths that are out there. So, for example, the idea of I only work part-time or I'm going to lose my benefits. And so folks limit themselves all the time based on that myth. And a lot of times folks will be limiting themselves all, and they will make more money by working and receiving benefits. And then to provide referrals, so to know who do I refer to, also to check in. So as a job developer way back in the day, one of the big mistakes I ever made on the job was checking in with someone on whether or not they were reporting their wages. Big learns very early on, right? So just that check-in with folks as well to make sure if you're providing support for folks to expand in careers, you've also got to be supporting folks to know their responsibilities around reporting their wages. And again, these are all teasers for our future webinar topics, because we'll be diving into these topics more as we continue. So Social Security Administration administers supplemental security income and Title II disability benefits. So throughout our time together, I want you to think of these two benefits living in separate bedrooms. And this is how I was taught too. So I want to visually put SSI, security income, in one room, and I want you to put Title II disability benefits in the other room, because they are entirely different benefits. The similarity they have is that Social Security administers both of them. But supplemental security income, oftentimes we want to call that Social Security income. It is not. It is supplemental security income, even if you just take away knowing what that acronym stands for. But I really want you to put them in two separate rooms. And throughout the webinar, we'll be opening the door to SSI and learning a bit more SSI, and then we're going to close that door and we're going to learn a little bit more about Title II benefits. But I think it will help you distribute which information goes with which benefit as we continue our time together. Talk about Title II disability benefits. So I want you to close the door to SSI, and I want you to open the door to Title II disability benefits. It's an insurance benefit. Anyone who receives a Title II disability benefit, someone has paid into the system in order for them to receive that benefit. So it's earned, it's insurance. And it's also pulled from your Social Security tax. So every single one of you who's receiving a paycheck, your FICA tax contributes to your potential Title disability benefit. So you can log on to the Social Security Administration website. Based on the amount of courses you have worked, you can go and see what your benefit might be if you were to receive a Title II disability benefit. And I want you to think about, there are 3 different flavors or types of Title II disability benefits. So again, think about it as 3 different flavors of ice cream, right? So within the Title II umbrella, there are these 3 flavors of benefits that folks can tap into, okay? So what 3 flavors? The first one is SSDI, which is the one that most of us have heard about, which is Social Security Disability Insurance. It's exactly what it says it is. It's Social Security Disability Insurance. I have paid into it based on my work record. The flavor is the Social Security Childhood Disability Benefit, or CDB type, which is the very smallest population of them all, is the Social Security Disabled Widower Benefit, or DWB. Okay, and to that. So close the door on Title II, and now we're going to open the door to SSI a little bit. Okay, so are you with me? We're closing the door to Title II. So the information you just received, tuck that away in the Title II room, and opening the door to SSI. So a completely separate benefit. Remember, supplemental security income. That benefit is entirely based on financial need. So the ugly word for SSI is welfare. I have to financially need this benefit in order to receive it. It's based on the federal income tax, so all contributing to this benefit, right? Both benefits. Now we're cracking the door open to both just a little bit, right? So the definition, in order to receive other benefit, I have to meet the definition of disability. And this is Social Security Administration's definition of disability. Are you with me? We're just going to read it. So the law defines disability as the need to engage in substantial gainful activity, on as SGA. We're going to talk about that much more in depth next week. So it's inability to engage in substantial gainful activity by reason of any medically determined determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death, or which has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. So what does that mean? It means I have a disability that keeps me from meeting substantial gainful activity, so making a certain amount of money, and that impairment, that disability has to last longer than 12 months or result in death, okay? I have to meet that definition of disability to receive other benefit. Piece where we're cracking the door open to both. There's a medical continuing disability review that has to be done over a certain period of time for either benefit. So both SSI and Title II beneficiaries have to have a medical CDR every so often. It happens at different times for different folks. So what CDR looking for? They're looking for a person's ability to engage in substantial gainful activity and to see if they've had medical improvement. So there are 3 different categories that folks can fall into that triggers their continuing disability review. That first category is 13 to 18 months. I'm likely to improve. So maybe I am currently I'm on the kidney transplant list, and if I receive that transplant, I'm likely to improve, right? 3 to 5 years possibly will improve, and 7 to 10 years, I'm not likely to improve. So my sister, who experiences an intellectual disability, is in the 7 to 10 year category. So a couple of pieces. So a lot of times for folks, this continuing disability review is really bring a lot of anxiety for folks, right? None of us like to be dug into and say, show me all of your information, right? Or could I possibly lose my benefit with this review? We're on a lot of anxiety for folks. One of the things we're going to talk about later in your on-site training is ticket to work. And so when someone assigns their ticket, they can actually prevent their medical CDR from happening. Okay. And then Section 3.1, which if I've assigned my case to voc rehab and I'm working on finding employment, then I can be found, I'm found to be medically improved. I can hold on my CDR. So again, not things that I don't want you to memorize, but I just want you to know that they exist, right? So the idea is I have to meet the definition of disability, know which benefit I receive. And I have a medical review that's going to happen in either in 13 to 18 months, 3 to 5 years, or 7 to 10 years, right? So I get lumped into one of those categories. Oh, now I'm going to close the door on SSI, and I want you to reopen the door to Title II disability benefits. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into Title II. There's 3 different flavors, right? So I have Title II. If I'm in the Title II category, there are 3 different flavors I could dip into. 1, Social Security Disability Insurance. So again, that's exactly what it says it is. It's insured based on my work record. So the check that I were to receive is going to be based on how many credits I have worked or paid into the system. I'm pulling it from my own work record. CD, or the Child Disability Benefit, that I'm a child who has a disability. I'm now an adult, but my disability occurred as a child. I have an insured parent who is retired, deceased, or disabled, and for their insured benefit. So the parent has paid into the system, right? Their FICA tax has paid into the system, and now they're either deceased, retired, or disabled, and their disabled child can now pull from that benefit, okay? The disabled widower benefit, and again, that's the smallest amount of folks. I've never worked with a DWB individual who receives the disabled widower benefit, and that's insured based on the deceased spouse. So the deceased spouse has paid into the system, okay? So I have to experience a disability and I have to meet that definition in order to dip into any of these pots, right? So that will keep coming up. I have to be meeting that definition. To eligibility. With Social Security disability insurance, it's based on, again, how much I have worked, how much I have paid into the system. So in general, you have to have about 20 credits earned at a 10-year period prior to your onset of disability. So each of you who are receiving a paycheck, you are putting money into that FICA tax, and if for any reason you were to become disabled tomorrow and that kept you from meeting substantial gainful activity and you met that definition, you apply for your Social Security disability insurance benefit. Okay. So NS can go on to the Social Security Administration website and pull that information. It used to come in a nice little mailing. It was green, and it would tell you how much your disability benefit would be if you were to become disabled tomorrow. So the next one, the next flavor, the child disability benefit, the child has to be over the age of 18, and insured parent who has to be retired, disabled, or deceased has paid into the system. So many times you might be working with someone who is 20 years old and they've never had a job a day in their life, and they tell you that they receive SSDI. And you're like, wait a second, but they never worked. They can't be receiving SSDI. Oftentimes, they're receiving a disability benefit. Ask what the parents do. Oftentimes, the parent is retired, disabled, deceased, and they're receiving that child disability benefit, right? So it's not SSDI, it's Untitled to umbrella, and they're receiving a child disability benefit. Okay. The third flavor is the disabled widower benefit, and I have to be over the age of 50 and have an insured spouse who has passed away and the disability incurred within a prescribed period. Okay. So one other thing I want you to memorize today is that Title II insurance goes hand in hand with Medicare. So each benefit is married to a medical benefit, and Title II benefit is married to Medicare. So always know that Title II and Medicare, they go together. All right, one of your pre-test questions. So you want to remember this for the post-test later down the road. And you also have a 24-month waiting period to access Medicare. So once I become entitled to my Title II benefit, I have to wait 24 months in order to have access to that Medicare benefit.
So we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. One inquiring about the type of benefit that an individual receives if they're paid on the third of the month. And the question is, how does one go about accruing credits?
Sure, great question. So the credit question is what comes up. So I would be happy to provide or build in more of, if it's a big question for you all, I can build in more information or email out more information on accruing credits, because it happens over a period of time, but once you hit a certain amount of money each credit. So, but I'm happy to send out information. And if you receive benefits on this, there's also, I will also just easier than me explaining. SSA provides a calendar every year for 2019, etc. I will upload those calendars into the link. Sorry, the word link escaped me. So each of you should have received a link that gives you access to the PowerPoint. I will drop in documents that will show you which benefit gets paid on which day of the month that SSA puts out, and then also I'll put up more information about accruing the credits if that works. Great questions. I'm just making a note. And then your fingertips. All right. Thanks to us. So the Title II check amount. So this is a big piece because it helps you identify which benefit an individual is receiving. So anytime with an SSI benefit, it's always based on the person's taxable earnings. So it means that if I worked 10 years, my SSDI check is going to be smaller than a person who's worked 25 years, right? And also it's going to be based on, for example, if I am a doctor, I receive probably a nice big paycheck, right? And so if I'm a doctor and I've paid into the system over 25 years, my SSDI check is going to be a whole lot higher than if I've only worked 10 years and paid into the system and I'm working as a job developer, right? So the pay difference between our professions is very different, unfortunately. So the idea is that my kid is going to be different no matter what, based on how much I've paid in. So a lot of times when you're supporting an individual and they say, oh, I received one check and it's in $25, we want to know that's not an SSI benefit because it's over the federal benefit rate. So it's got to be a Title II benefit check. And then you can ask them more questions of, oh, have you worked in the past? Yes, I worked for 22 years before I got on my disability benefit. So you've got a pretty good idea that this individual is probably receiving Social Security disability insurance. And the DB or WB is going to be based on how much the insured worker's taxable earnings are, right? So it's based on how much the family member or parent or spouse has paid into the system. To an earned income. So Title II is all or nothing. So where folks get really, really nervous because I either get a check or I don't get a check. Okay, so and it's all based on the term accountable earnings, and accountable earnings are below a monthly level, I get my check, or if they're above a monthly level, I get a check. I'm going to dive into this a whole lot deeper our next webinar, and then also on the on-site training. So just know that Title II is all or nothing. I get the check or I don't. All right. So there's no equation of figuring out how much or I don't. So let's test our knowledge thus far. Number 2, Title II benefit check is the same amount for everyone who receives the benefit. True or false? Okay, excellent. 76% of you responded that the answer is false. Correct. So Title II disability benefits is an insured benefit and is based on what someone has paid into the system. So each person's check is going to be different based on how much they've paid in. And I see that there's also a question. There are caps on SSDI amounts. There are caps on how much you can contribute to your FICA each year. So that's kind of your cap is based on how much you can contribute. So good question. Thank you all for contributing and answering, following along. Right, so Title II, open the door to SSI because we're switching topics. All right. Supplemental income. So for SSI, again, here comes that definition. We have to experience a disability and meet the SSA definition in order to receive SSI. So we know they are very separate benefits. They do have a few commonalities. You have to be above the age of 18, and again, I'm meeting the same definition as Title II. Also is the child disability benefit. We're not talking about that today, but it does exist, and that's a whole separate bailiwick, right? So we're not going to be focusing on the child benefit. We're only going to be focusing on the adult SSI benefit. So I have to meet the definition, and I also have to have a financial need. So the other name for SSI is welfare. I have to have a financial need in order to receive this benefit. The only thing it's supposed to cover is food and shelter. Okay, so my very basic needs, that's all it's intended to cover. Limited resources. So individual, I have less than $2,000. And for a couple, it's $3. Okay, so that definition is you're going to look, okay, am I financially needy? If it's just me, Ashley, I have to have below $2,000 in my bank account. Many of you have probably heard Joe has to have a spend down that he can continue to meet eligibility for his benefit, that financial need. And yes, this is a monthly amount. So for instance, if you are above $2,000, you're not going to have access. You're not going to be eligible for SSI that month, okay? And I have to have limited income, so below $750 or $1,125 for a couple. One thing you to know is Social Security Administration increases often based on COLA yearly. You're going to memorize these numbers for a year, and then they will increase. There have been some years in the past where there's no COLA increase and stay the same. However, in the last couple of years, it's gone up by about 10 each year. So you want to make sure that you are always checking in October or November when the Social Security Administration releases those numbers. So SSI, again, supplemental security income, I have to meet that resource limit. So $2,000 for an individual, $3,000 for a couple. When resources are above $2,000, I don't receive SSI. I'm not eligible that month. Resources are below them to what SSA calls their income test. So resources, Heather, just follow along. So we're diving right in there. So what are resources? There's things you own that could be used or liquidated to pay for food and shelter. No. This is great, Heather. You're wonderful. You're following along. So again, remember that SSI is needs-based. So I have resources that could be paying for things. Social Security Administration says, well, don't you liquidate those before, we're willing to pay you out this benefit, right? So what are those things? Could be bank accounts, stocks, bonds, etc. The big piece is what's excluded. Folks can have a house to live in, one car, able that are under $100,000, trusts. I don't know the specific trusts. You'd want someone who specializes in trusts. And the individual development accounts, and so which AFI stands for Assets for Independence, IDA is Individual Development Accounts. So an individual development account is a savings piece that's in every state that matches funds. So if I have $1,000, oftentimes the IDA will match that savings. Then the thing is that I could have an IDA or a savings account through ABLE that allows me to have more than $2,000 in resources, but it's excluded, right? So that means I would still meet the definition and the need to receive SSI, okay? There
A couple more questions in the Q&A box.
Oh.
Daniel asks, is the financial need based on disability? And there's also the question, which you briefly touched on whether this course will go over how ABLE accounts interact with SSI and SSDI.
So we're not going to dive into ABLE accounts. So we can see if we can build a little bit more of that maybe into our on-site, but also it's fairly specific in each state as well. And the next question, sorry, I missed it. My chat box is not very big. Based on disability. So you're finding, I don't know if I'm the question correctly, but your disability, they're two separate pieces. So I have to be financially needy, and then I also have to experience a disability, and due to that disability, it keeps me from meeting that substantial gainful activity that I talked about. And I think we'll get deeper into these topics with each webinar, and specifically is our next webinar will dive into Title II, and then the third webinar will dive into supplemental security income at length. So we'll get there. So with we talk about income. So I want to remember, or just take notes, and we'll dive into SSI webinar series together, or a third webinar. But earned income, when we talk about earned income, SSA is referring to is our gross wages. So they're looking at the gross wage or net earnings from self-employment. Now, we're not going to dive into self-employment real in depth. So that would be an area where if you know someone who is pursuing self-employment, you definitely want to get them connected to one of your benefits experts in state. The piece that's always the word unearned income. So that means money that I'm receiving that isn't earned. So open the door to Title II. That means if I'm receiving SSI and I'm also receiving a II check. So SSDI is actually an earned benefit. On the SSA rules, it's considered an unearned benefit if I'm receiving that. And so you'll see the calculations as we move forward. But I just want you to kind of get comfortable with the terms of earned income and unearned income. So earned income means check. I'm working for that money, and it's based on the gross wages or net earnings from self-employment if I'm self-employed. Income is anything that isn't earned. So that would be any Title II benefit, commence comp, and then the third piece is in-kind support. So the value of free food or shelter. So if I'm living with mom and dad and they're not charging me rent, Social Security Administration says we're going to reduce your SSI check by a third because you're receiving free, okay? So you don't have that need if you're not paying rent. So times that's why when we see folks applying for SSI and they are receiving SSI and they live with mom and dad, they have to be paying rent. If they're not, SSA is going to reduce that check because their funding is not as great, okay? Let's check in with where you're at. What's the SSI federal benefit rate in 2018 for an individual? We just skimmed on this. So is it A, $735, B, $750, C, $800, or D, $705? All right, so results are in. 21% of you said it's $735. You were for or a few years ago. For B, 7% of you said $750. You were spot on. So the 2018 federal benefit this year is $750. So how do you know if someone is receiving supplemental security income? Okay, I receive one check. It's for $750. It's a pretty good indication that they're receiving SSI. Okay, so not a live way of identifying what benefits somebody receives, but it gives you a pretty good indication of what benefit someone is receiving. So those are questions, when I mentioned earlier in the webinar that you could be having conversations with folks, is when try and identify what benefit they might be receiving. And you can do that by asking how much is that you receive each month. So say I get one check at $750, bing, security income. If they say I receive two checks and it's $850 or $825, you bing, I think they're probably getting a Title II benefit and an SSI benefit, and really need to pay attention because that means both rooms are open and both rules apply, right? So those cases can get a little confusing. Or if someone says, I get one check a month and it's $850, that's a real indication that they're giving some sort of Title II benefit, because you know it's above that $750 federal benefit rate. So whether you live in Iowa, California, Massachusetts, Utah, Texas, the federal benefit rate is $750 across the board. Okay. I also see we have a question from Carrie. Is unearned income also child support foster care alimony? I'm going to have to check on that one because I want to make sure I don't give you any inaccurate information. So I will get back to you with our next webinar. I'll make sure I cover those questions as we get started. So answer, $750 per month per individual. So I'll leave you with one thought today, and the thought is around loss aversion. So a lot of times when we're supporting folks, even if we provide them accurate information around their benefits, of even potentially lose benefit, is twice as powerful as the idea of gaining. So loss aversion is the thought that the pain of losing is psychologically about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining. And this is just loss aversion as human beings. It's not specific to benefits, but it absolutely applies to benefits, because oftentimes just the very thought, the concept that I might even risk the idea of losing that benefit totally outweighs the idea of gaining. So even if these conversations are hard, and we have to start them early, and we have to support another in this field as a team to make sure that we're providing folks with accurate information around benefits as early as possible. Because it's powerful. The idea of losing benefits is really, really scary for folks. But the truth is that oftentimes they put that at risk, and there are also work incentives galore that we're going to talk about that SSA puts in place to really encourage folks and support folks to get working. So that I think a lot of you will hopefully walk away and say, wow, there are all of these work incentives that really allow folks to get ahead instead of feeling like they get ahead and they have to stay at a certain level or not work at all because of that fear of losing benefits. So have the inkling to dive into just more information around Employment First. Please check out the Employment First Lead Center and the Office of Disability Employment Policy, Employment First State Leadership Mentoring Initiative. Both of those are links that you can click on for more information that support this webinar series and information around Employment First. Also, if you are interested in receiving more about ODEP's EFSL and P mailing list, you can also register there. It's a picture of me and my contact information, more importantly. So if you have any specific questions, please reach out. I so appreciate all 147 of you taking out an hour on your Monday, no less, to talk about benefits or to listen to me chat about benefits. And I very much look forward to connecting with you all 1 week from today at the same time and the same place.
Again, this is Dwayne Shoemate. I just wanted to provide some updates to individuals. We will be sending out later this week a link to the archived recording as well as a link to this PowerPoint presentation and reminding individuals of the resource pages that are available. For those who have signed up to attend training in St. Louis, we have extended that opportunity to include Monday, August 13th, as well as Tuesday, August 14th. Because of the haste in trying to get today's webinar completed, we were able to send out, and for those who had previously signed up for St. Louis, on which the 2 dates they would prefer. During next week's webinar, we will have an opportunity for those planning to attend the in-state training in St. Louis. We'll have a live polling as part of the webinar to where you can select which of those 2 dates would best your schedules. Upon exiting today's webinar, you will have an opportunity to complete a survey. We strongly encourage you to complete that survey as we use that feedback to help us guide and direct future training and technical assistance. If there are questions for Ashley, they can be typed into the Q&A box. We will stick around for a couple of minutes. And otherwise, thank you for your participation.